All right, everybody, welcome back to the section. If you haven't already gone and watched some of these other videos on the Fox, I recommend you do that. Please like and subscribe. As you can see, we're already getting into the removal of this AC compressor out of this 1988 Volkswagen Fox. Basically going over through this, the tool that you're going to be using is that 17 millimeter ratcheting wrench. You can use a regular wrench, socket set, whatever, as long as you're using that 17 millimeters. On this AC compressor, it's attached to the 1.8 liter engine that is inside the Fox by 4 mounting points. You have 4 bolts that are all 17 millimeters. There's also going to be an electrical connection that you will remove from the wiring harness. And also, if you haven't already removed the belt, I suggest you do so. But in this video, I'm going to show you pretty much how I'm going to remove it in a more primitive manner, just because of the condition of the engine. As you can see, I've loosened the 2 bolts that were closest to the firewall, both that top and bottom one. And now I'm working on the 2 bolts that go towards the front of the engine or the front of the vehicle. These ones, you're a little bit more limited on space, so your socket set may not work. This is why I recommend you use that 17 millimeter ratcheting wrench. The only reason I say ratcheting is because you're going to spend a whole lot less time if you are using a just standard 17 millimeter wrench. These ones took a little bit more time just because of the lack of space. I had a plastic pulley cover that you can see was digging into my hand and tore through my glove. So it just took a little bit more time, a little bit more love to get these 2 front mounting bolts off. On my hands and knees at this point, trying to get enough leverage to really get it going. I recommend spraying this, all your bolts down with penetrating fluid. I didn't do it, but it would have saved a lot more headache and a lot more time, just because these were rusted in a little bit. I'd be able to get them freehand at some times, but then it would get caught on the rust itself. There's one of the bolts that I was able to pull out. I believe I've gotten the 2 out that were closest to the front of the vehicle, front of the engine, and now I'm working on removing these closest to the firewall mounting points. Again, ratcheting, it just saves you a whole lot of time. As you can see, I'm just constantly able to crank on it, and then once I get it far enough, I'm able to unthread it by hand. So I've gotten 3 of those bolts out. 3 of those bolts out. Got them set on the toolbox out of the way. That way we don't lose them for later. And then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this last bolt that is holding the compressor to the actual mounting points of the engine. As you can see, I'm just going to keep moving with it, nothing to it. It's all really simple. It just takes time. I'm able to, once again, pull it out by hand, and there you have it. You have 1 bolt, 2 bolt, washer, bolt, makes 3, and finally 4. So your 4 mounting bolts are finally out. Next, I'm going to move on, take a look at what is still holding it on at that point. I hadn't given it a thorough look through, but basically I've just noticed that there is an electrical connection, and I'm figuring out what's the best route to go about this. It does have a Phillips head screw that's holding the electrical connection in place on the compressor itself. Little did I know that there's actually a part in the wiring harness that you'll actually unclip, because when you pull that bracket off pretty much with that Phillips head, you're not really removing anything at all unless you destroy your wire harness. So I just unclipped it, and we can move forward with that. Next, I'm trying to free up that belt, hoping that it will just wiggle off, but unfortunately I don't really have any luck with that. So I have to move on to a more, I went ahead and tried to work with the pulley first. So you'll see here in a second that I grab the socket set. I can't remember which one I ended up grabbing. I believe it was a 13 millimeter socket, just with an extension and my snap-on ratchet. And I was going to try and just remove the pulley, but that didn't work out because that main crank pulley is frozen in place due to that one cylinder being rusted, rust frozen into place. So whenever I finally got further into it, after I removed that first bolt, I went to move the pulley, but found out, it's stuck. So I went ahead and grabbed my gardening tool, as you'll see here, and I got underneath. It has a serrated edge on the back of it, so I just went ahead and sawed away at it, and then I took the hook part and I pulled it through. That way I could snap it off. Now this is an old belt, came, I'm assuming, original with the vehicle, so I wasn't going to be reusing it, so I wasn't too terribly worried about it. At this point, the compressor is completely free, no electrical connections, but I hope you really like this video. There's not a whole lot to it, a couple mounting points and electrical connections, so thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.